I'm Bill Lindquist, and I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about what you're going to be seeing in this movie that's coming up. Back in 1930, the Richardson Boat Company started to have sailaways, and they continued up until World War II. And what they would do is invite all the new boat owners to come up to Tonawanda in the spring and sail back down the canal all the way to New York City in their new boats. And these became extremely popular, and even though it was in the middle of the Depression some of the years, they would still have up to 24 boats traveling along the canal. And these attracted a lot of attention. There was a lot of newspaper covering of what was going on, and crowds would gather at all of the ports along the way. And so it was a kind of a fun event. And in 1935, Kodak got wind of it and decided they would send a photographer aboard and would cover the event along the way. And that is what you're going to be seeing in the film to come. And we had read about, back in the boating magazines of the period, we'd read about this movie that had been taken, and it was to be made available to boating clubs and yacht clubs. And you could contact the Richardson Boat Company. They would send the films to you, and then after your club had seen them, you could return them. But we'd never been able to locate the film. That is, until shortly after the book was published, which happened in July of 1990. And in the fall of that year, I heard from a Mr. Orlo Hoadley. Now, Orlo had been on a vacation on a ferry boat out on Lake Erie. And he just happened to pick up a newspaper that was sitting in the seat next to him from the day before. And there was a description of the Richardson book, and I guess my name, and the Richardson Boat Owners Association. And so he followed through, and along in October of that year, he contacted me. Well, he lived the other side of Rochester. I lived he lived on the west side. I lived at the east of Rochester, so it was easy enough to get together, because he thought that maybe he'd have some material that would be of interest to us. Well, indeed he did, because we met, and what did he have but this film that we've been reading about but had never been able to find. And here it was, the 6th Annual Sailaway, 1935, Richardson Boat Company. And so we thought and looked into the possibility of being able to project it on a film projector of the period, but it would not do. It was so brittle that it would not go through the projector. So we went to an expert photographic shop in Rochester, and they converted it to tape. And now the reason we had not heard of Orlo Hoadley before is because Mr. and Mrs. Richardson's first child, well, Mrs. Richardson died during the birth of their first child, and it was sometime later that Mr. Richardson married Mrs. Hoadley, who was a business person in the area, and her son Orlo did not want to give up his dad's name. And so, although he lived with his mom and Mr. Richardson, he never had the name of Richardson, and so we had not heard about him in the course of our research. But he was most gracious. He was retired from Kodak as an engineer, and turned over the film to us. And the photographic experts in Rochester said it would be best to put it on a videotape, which they did, and that's what you're going to be seeing next. Now, this, as I said, or maybe I didn't say, this is a silent film. It's not a talkie. And so you're going to have to be dependent upon the text as it appears now and then throughout the film. but because of the condition of the film, a few of the words were lost at the beginning of it. And here those words are, and then the film will begin. Quote, "Each year, new owners from the Atlantic seaboard take delivery of their Richardsons at Tonawanda, and by way of the historic Barge Canal and scenic Hudson River, cruise over 500 miles to New York City. Enjoy."